Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Hi, Sampath.
Good morning, ma'am. Ma'am, good evening. Ma'am, can you say where I lost marks in the social and English exam?
Oh, what are you saying? I'm not able to hear you well.
Ma'am, now can you hear?
Yeah.
Ma'am, can you say where I lost marks in social and English exam?
Where you lost marks. Okay, I will have to open your question paper for that, and then I will tell you. I'll send you a message.
Okay, okay, ma'am.
Okay. Let me see. I think you got to check your marks. Hmm. Yeah, you got 67 out of 80 in social science,
Yes,
and
sir. Yes.
you got 66. I know one thing. I think you left out one paper in scanning. I think it is because of that, because I think I have seen this. Let me open your. Uh, in social studies, there were answers, there were question answers for 4 marks, 5 marks, and that means you have to write them in about 150 words, and you wrote very small answers. And in map, there was one wrong.
Ma'am, what may come for map?
What?
Ma'am, what may come for map in a exam?
What will come for map? That I cannot tell now. Now what will come for map? It it can, anything can come. You have to practice map,
Means
or
from which chapter maximum?
you have only, I think, in syllabus you have, I think, only 4 chapters, right? Let me see.
Eight,
What
ma'am, 8 chapters.
8 chapters you have? Yeah. I think in geography you will have maps. You have. Let me open your syllabus.
Ma'am, can it come from history?
It can come from history also. Yes. Okay. So we
Yeah.
will do French Revolution. In history, you have French Revolution and you have the Russian Revolution. Yeah. So we will do. Okay. Everybody has joined. Only two of you have joined.
Yes.
Hi Harshit. Now you tell me, Harshit, do you have any specific doubt or do you want me to do revision
Ma'am, specifically, I just want to revise constitutional design and Russian Revolution.
and Russian Revolution?
Yes.
Okay. Constitutional design and Russian Revolution. Let me open constitutional design first. So we have constitutional design here. When we are doing constitutional design, yeah, let's do a quick revision. Okay. So how was the constitution formed and who makes the constitution and what is the method to make a constitution? Can, can we bring changes to the constitution? These were the topics that we will be studying in this chapter. Okay, so before when we're doing constitution, we will study the constitution of South Africa. What happened in South Africa? Okay, now in South Africa, there were three types of people living. They were the white, the black, and the colored. Colored were the ones who were not very black, who were not very white also, like us. Right. So the whites were in minority, although they were in minority, their non-white people were segregated and they were lot of discrimination in South Africa on the basis of their skin color. Okay, now this discrimination was encouraged by the white government. Okay, and the black people faced a lot of problems. Okay, there were non-white people were not allowed to live in the area. So this was called this is called segregation. And the policy was termed apartheid. Okay, so the blacks, even if the blacks wanted to go to work in the white area, they needed a permit. So this discrimination was there all over the places. Okay, they were separate staircase, they were separate benches in park, they were separate hospitals, and it was not only that it was only separate. The white got good facilities and the poor got, and the blacks got poor facilities. Also, the blacks did not have the right to vote. Okay, now this color discrimination was called apartheid system. This is the system that was made by the whites in South Africa. This is called apartheid system. Question will come, what is apartheid? Question will come. Okay, questions will come. What is meant by segregation? Segregation. All the places like trains, buses, hospitals, benches were all separate for the blacks and the whites. Even the churches were separate. The black people were forbidden from living in white areas. This was called segregation. Okay. And what is the apartheid system? This was the policy of the racial segregation. Okay. This was the policy that was racial segregation under which people were classified and separated on the basis of race. Many restrictions were imposed on the blacks who formed more than 80%. Now, one thing I wanted to tell you, Sampath and also Harshit, you should find out how much marks you are getting. Okay. If you're getting, if the marks is only 2, then you have to write at least 2 points. If the marks is about 5, then understand that you have to write in at least 150 words. Okay, and if it is only 2 marks, then you just have to write 2 points there, and you have to write at least 50 words. Okay, and if it is and in case it is 4 or 3, so you just have to write about 100 words. Okay, so if you are writing point wise, you wrote 2 points and the question is out of 5, the teacher will not be able to give you full marks. Okay, and what more questions is there? This is short answers. Okay, so let's do the quick revision for apartheid system. You understand? I explained. Okay, now anyone who was against the apartheid system was killed or put in jail. Fine. Now Nelson Mandela protested. Okay, he was a leader. Now he protested and then he was imprisoned in 1964. Okay, and we'll talk about in Nelson Mandela in detail. Okay, so this is about Nelson Mandela. Now he opposed the apartheid system. Okay, and many blacks had to face many problems during his apartheid. So all the protest was under his supervision. Okay, so he was running the National Congress, African National Congress, the ANC, and this is the flag. Okay, and when this rose to an extreme, the whites got worried. Okay, and all the discriminatory laws were removed, and the political party that was banned was also unbanned. Okay, now Nelson Mandela came out of prison after 28 years. He went to prison in 1964. Yeah, and after 28 years he came back, and then he was made the president. On when did he come out? He came out on 26 April 1994. Okay, you have to remember this date. It might come in fill in the blanks or as a true or false or anything. Okay, and then he was made the black. He became the first black president. Yeah, he was made the first black president. Okay, now as soon as they came into power, they had two options. Okay, they could take a revenge. Okay, they would start killing and also so this would or they could forgive the white and they could make a new start. So making a new start and forgiving them and making a new start was the option because it would lead the country into unrest if they would if they would start taking revenge. It would they would not be able to rule the country. So violence is never an answer, and then they formed a constitution. And this why we are studying the history of South Africa, because our Indian founders of constitution have taken references from their constitution a lot. Okay, now the black leaders said that we will forget all the old things and create a new constitution in which everyone will get equal rights, whether it is black, whether it's white. So equal rights for all. Okay, now this constitution took about 2 years to be formed, and there was a lot of debate and discussion for it. And now because of this debate and discussion, they have their own constitution, which is the kind of a that is the constitution that is taken into reference by all many other countries. Also we India took it. So why do we need a constitution? Any country needs a constitution. It is a rule book on how the country has to be run. Fine. So constitution is a set of a written rules that are accepted by all the peoples in the country. It is the, like, if you want to run any machinery, you need a manual, right? You need directions, you need the do's and don'ts, right? So that is there in the constitution. That is the rule book. So it is special type of book or document in which many types of rules and regulations were written, in which have to be followed by all the citizens living in the country. So, what is the constitution? Okay, express the basic ideas accepted by all leaders before casting the about. Okay, why do we need a constitution and what do constitution do? The questions may come this way. It may come, why do countries need a constitution? Explain. The question may come in different types. Okay, now the constitution of a country is a set of written rules that are accepted by all the people living together in the country. The constitution is the supreme law that determines the relationship among the people living in a territory that is called the citizen, and also the relationship between the people and the government. Okay, I have sent you all these question and answers, right? You both all have it, right? Yeah, Harshit, you have the question answers, right? Sampath?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine, fine. So you will have to go to the revision here, and okay, now the importance is the specification. It specifies how the government will be constituted, who will have the power to take which decision. Trust and coordination is there. It generates a degree. You have to memorize these points, okay, and this you have to elaborate it, okay. What you mean by specifications? It shows how the government will be constituted, okay. Who will have the power to take which decision, okay. Trust and coordination. It generates a degree of trust and coordination that is necessary for different kinds of people who live together. Rights and duties, it lays down the rights and duties, okay, and the limit of the powers of the government. The government cannot decide everything on its own. It has to consider the citizens. Good society, it expresses the aspirations of the people about creating a good society. Okay, like there should be peace and harmony. Okay, provisions and sources, the parliamentary form of government, the British. How did the Indians take the constitution? They took the parliamentary form of government from the British constitution. Okay, the charter of the fundamental rights they took from the US constitution. Principles of liberty, equality, and fraternity that they took from the French constitution. Okay, and the concept of social and economic equality, the former USSR, that is now Russia, or the socialist revolution they took. The directive principles of state policy, this they took from Irish constitution. So these were all the references which the founders of our country took. Express the basic ideas accepted by all leaders before drafting the constitution. Okay, now examine, there are the three basic ideas, guidelines were there, three basic ideas were there. Now, prior to framing the constitution, our constitution makers had gone through the constitutions of nearly 60 countries. They studied the constitution of about 60 countries. So there was a very extensive research. Okay. So they had also studied the various acts passed by the British government and the emotions adopted by the Congress party. This study enables the makers of the constitution to select the best provision from different sources, but on our own terms. Means we, you can say, you took spices from everywhere and we cooked our own dish. Now, some of the main provisions of our constitutions and their original sources are given below. This is to be noted. Our constitution makers did not imitate. Imitate means copy what others had done. They selected and modified the content according to India perspective. At each step, they also questioned or judged the legitimacy of various provisions. Fine. Now the preamble. When we study the Constitution of India, we have to study the preamble. The 8 preamble are there: sovereign, socialist, secular, republic, liberty, equality, fraternity, and justice. Okay, now you describe any 5 values is also there, but you have to study. I think it's best you study all the 8. Let us go on with the notes. Okay, so the South Africa has its own. Now, why do we need a constitution? The constitution, we have done this. Okay. Okay, first it generates a degree of trust and coordination. Okay, that is point one. And second, it specifies how the government will be formed and who will have the powers to take decision. Okay. Third, it lays down limits on the power of the government and tells us what the rights of the citizens are. This is three. Okay. And fourth, it expresses the aspirations of the people about creating a good society. We should have a good society. Okay, let's move further. Now we've studied about South Africa. Okay, you have to study about what is Nelson Mandela. You have about Nelson Mandela, how he opposed the apartheid. First of all, what the whites had done, they had. You have to study about segregation. You have to study about apartheid system and how Nelson Mandela opposed and his party that ANS, I guess, okay, African National Congress, ANC, and then he was imprisoned in 1964, and then he came out of the prison in 1996. Okay, and he stayed in the prison for about 28 years, and he came out and he became the first black president of South Africa. Okay, and then there was two options. They could either take revenge on the white, or they could forgive them and make a new constitution, and everybody should live peacefully. So for this, they formed a new constitution. About 2 years of discussion and debate, the South African constitution was formed. Okay, and everybody was treated equally, the white and the black. Okay, now we have come to the making of the Indian constitution. Okay, first of all, there was a struggle. There was a struggle was different from what was in South Africa. The struggle of India was different. What was India's struggle? Okay, the problems faced by while making the Indian constitution, it was very difficult to make an Indian constitution for a large country with diversified groups. There was diversified group was there. Okay, many languages were there, many religions were there. Okay, so this was a very diversified group of population in India. The country was born through a partition. Okay, when the British left us, there was a partition there, and then on the basis of that, also on the basis of religious difference. Okay, so there was communal disharmony was very high, and thousands of people had lost their lives. Many properties was lost. Okay, and it was a very traumatic experience. So this was a problem, and next, it was also difficult to make a constitution for a large country diversified with dense. Okay, also there was the British had left it to the rulers of the princely states. India was not unified. There were small princely states were there. You can say kingdom, or you can say um, groups, small countries, kingdoms were there, and there were rulers. The kings were there who used to rule them. So the British had left the rulers of the princely states to decide whether they wanted to merge with India or Pakistan or remain independent. So this was a decision left. So of course, when there is no decision made, so there was a fight, there was quarrel. So India, the founders of India and the constitution makers had this problem faced by them. So this is, let me see if we have a related question here. There may be. Anyway, you can study this notes. What was the problem while making the Indian Constitution? Okay. Now, how was the Constitution formed? Okay. Now, Motilal Nehru and 8 Congress leaders. Who were the 8 Congress leaders? Motilal Nehru prepared the Constitution of India in 1928. B.R. Ambedkar was the chairman. Okay, Rajendra Prasad was the president, and Sarojini Naidu was a member of the Constituent Assembly. Remember, Mahatma Gandhi was not a part of the making of the Constitution, but his policies and his ideology was taken. Okay. Express the basic ideas by all leaders in the drafting of the this is okay. Now, prior to framing the constitution, our constitution maker had gone through the constituents of nearly 60 countries. They also had studied the various acts passed by the British government and the emotions adopted by the Congress party. This study enables the makers of the constitution to select the best provisions from different sources but on our own terms. Some of them in this we have done this. Okay, now we are going to do what are the preambles, okay, of the Constitution of India. This was the 8 preambles is there. You have to study this in detail. Okay, the Constituent Assembly was a representative body of India. Explain with example. The Assembly was dominated by Indian National Congress. Many important political leaders were also its members. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Maulana Abdul Kalam Azad, Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Mrs. Sarojini Naidu, and Sardar Baldev Singh were its important leaders who guided the discussion in the Constituent Assembly. There were more than 30 members belonging to the scheduled caste. Minorities like the Anglo-Indians had Frank Anthony as their representative. The party government was represented by H.P. Modi. Some constitutional experts like Aladi Krishna Swamy Iyer, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, and K.M. Munshi were also there. Mrs. Sarojini Naidu and Mrs. Vijaya Lakshmi Pandit were two leading women of India in the Constitutional Assembly. The members deliberated for 114 days, spread over 3 years. So it took them 3 years and about 114 days of meeting to decide the constitution. Yet, so this was a very elaborate research was done of 60 countries. They were very important leaders who sat down and spoke about the constitution. Now, why should we accept the constitution made by the Constituent Assembly more than 60 years ago? It is very old, but so why should we accept it? So, Constituent Assembly, a galaxy of Indians, the Constituent Assembly represented the people of India. There were no universal adult franchise at that time. So, it was elected mainly by the members of the existing provisional legislatures. So, it was not an atmosphere where elections could be held. So, it was the members who sat down, the founders who sat down and they discussed on it. This ensured a fair geographical share of members from all the regions of the country. So they were people from all regions of geographical share. They were from the south, east, west, north. Okay. The assembly was dominated by the Indian National Congress, but the leaders having different opinions. In social terms too, the assembly represented members from different language groups, caste, classes, religions, and occupations. Okay. Elected members, the drafting of the document called the Constitution was done by an assembly of elected representatives called the Constituent Assembly. So the Constitution was made by the Constituent Assembly. Working pattern of the assembly is the Constituent Assembly worked in a yeah.
Ma'am means if the people of the country doesn't want a specific law which is already there in the constitution, can we remove it?
You mean amendments? Yeah, we are going to study the provision for amendments is there. Yes, it is there. If there is it is our course about more than I think 75 72 or 73 years old. Of course, in today's modern day we need some changes to be made, and yes, there is a provision for amendments, but there are certain conditions. Nobody can simply sit down and change the constitution or a rule on his own. The citizens of India has to be involved. Okay. So let me finish this question and then we'll go to amendment. Okay, the Constituent Assembly first worked in a systematic, open and consensual manner. Consensual manner means everybody must agree. First, some basic principles were decided and agreed upon. Then a drafting committee chaired by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar prepared a draft constitution for discussion. Several rounds of thorough discussion took place on the draft constitution by clause, point by point, line by line, clause by clause were discussed and then it was finalized. Now let's talk about why did the constitution framers made provisions for amendment in the Indian constitution. Give three reasons. This was the three reasons why there was provisions for amendments. Okay, to make amendment means you can make a change in a rule. Okay, the Indian constitution is a very long detailed document. It was never considered as static, sacred and unalterable law. It can be altered. Okay, unalterable means it cannot be altered. So there was never a static and sacred and unalterable law. It needed to be amended quite regularly to keep it updated. Those who drafted the Indian Constitution felt that it had to be in accordance with people's aspirations and change in society. Our constitution makers had great foresight. Okay, foresight. They could see what is to happen. They were aware of the upcoming future needs of the fast changing Indian society. It was likely to experience many social economic changes in the coming years. As such, they desired that the Indian constitution should be able to adapt itself to the changing conditions or circumstances, so they made provisions to incorporate changes from time to time. These changes are called the constitutional amendments. They provided a suitable amending procedure. Okay, so we will talk about the amendments here.
And did you use in the guides?
Okay, so amendment is the institutional design. Constitution is very long and detailed document. Therefore, it needs to be amended quite regularly to keep it updated. Those who crafted the Indian Constitution felt that it has to be in accordance with the people's aspirations and changes in society. They did not see it as sacred, static, and unalterable law. So they made provisions to incorporate changes from time to time. These changes are called constitutional amendments. Okay. So just go through this and then uh, study the preamble is there. Study the preamble. What is justice and then paternity, all the 8 preambles has to be studied there. Okay. Who were the makers? You have to study their names. Okay. And what were the provisions and their sources? Salient features you can say, or the preamble is also the salient features. Okay, it is the same. Now what is the constitution? How was the constitution made? Who were the rulers and all that were the major factors which contributed to the making of our city? The national movement.
Excuse me, ma'am. Ma'am, did you share this PDF in the guides app?
I think I have shared it. I'll share it again. No problem. I'll share it again.
Okay.
And any other doubt? Next we will take you said about Russian Revolution, right?
Yeah, ma'am, but I have the exam at this Friday.
You have the exam on Friday. Then I will not able to do. I'll send you the Russian revolutions. We have recently done Russian Revolution.
Yes, ma'am.
French Revolution we have done. French Revolution is there. Whenever we talk about the French Revolution, we have to talk about the outbreak of the revolutionary protest in France. Okay, talk about the King Louis in
English.
yeah, King Louis 12th. Okay, and then how what was the society structure that time? There was yeah, there was the first state was there. Okay, in that was the church, and then there was the second state. There was the nobility. The third state constituted of all the other people. There were the businessmen. Then there were the peasants, and then there were the small peasants, landless laborers, and over there. Okay, though it was there is they okay, Louis 16 of the Bourbon family. He was married to the Austrian princess. Her name was Mary Antoinette. Okay, now he was when he inherited when he came to the throne, there was the kingdom was under a lot of debt. It was in debt because of the war. So to fight this debt, he increased taxes, and to increase taxes, there was a there has to be an approval of the three states. So the first state comprised there was what was the problem there? The first state comprised of the clergy, and they favored the king, right? And then the second state also was
And because they
the
didn't have to pay taxes.
yeah, so they and everybody took only one vote. Okay, so although there were many people in the third category, but there were only one vote. Okay, so always they won. So what happened? So this led to the and the taxes were increased. Okay, this led to the discontent. So people were not happy. People were what was the reasons why they were not happy? So substance crisis was there. Okay, there was a big gap between the rich and the poor. The rich became richer, the poor became poorer. Okay, so what there might be a question on what is substance crisis. Okay, and then they formed their own republic. What was it? Who were the leaders? Okay, that was Montesquieu was there, John Luke, and John Jacques Rousseau was there, and now they propose a division of power within the government between the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. The power should be divided between these three, and the power should be taken away from the Bourbon family, and it should be given to a legislative assembly, that is the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary, and everybody has to be equal. Okay, now, what led to the outbreak of the revolution? The outbreak was because there was outbreak was on 5th of May 1789 on Louis 16 called a meeting. Okay, and although they had 40,000 letters and about 600 members were there, so they only counted one vote. All the 600 counted only one vote. So they lost, and then they what happened? They walked out, and then they walked out, and then they collected in a what do you say? What was the stadium?
Tennis court.
Yeah, and there they assembled and they formed the institution, and uh, it curtailed the powers of the monarch and assigned it to the three institutions, that is the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. This
Ma'am, I
made
have a
France
doubt.
a constitutional monarchy. Yeah.
Ma'am, did the people who stormed Bastille got the weapons? Um, um,
What weapon?
Ma'am means the people consisting of third states. They stormed the Bastille prison so that they in search of arms. Did they get?
Uh, when the outbreak happened, of course, there was a lot of rumors spread, and then they attacked with whatever they had. Okay, it was there is no mention of any kind of a weapon, but they attacked the monarch, and they attacked the Bastille castle. Okay, now after the revolution, what happens? Okay, king again. There was yeah, Maximilian Robespierre came. Maximilian Robespierre. Okay, now his when he came, his reign was called the Reign of Terror. Okay, what was terror? He was very strict. Okay, what happened? He ruled between 1793 to 94. His reign was called terror. Why? He rationed everything, and he fixed prices, and the costlier and the farmers were not allowed to uh, sell in their own prices. They had to fix the price. Okay, so ultimately, and also whoever was against him, he guillotined everybody. So on the end, what happened? In July 1794, he was convicted and arrested, and he was sent to guillotine. Guillotine was a death sentence in France. It was made in France to cut the head off. So there the head was placed here, okay, and then the knife from up would drop down, and the head would be cut off. Okay, so
Actually, my teacher taught that Robespierre made one guy make bulletin.
yeah, there was an this was made in France. I'm saying the bulletin was made in France. Yeah.
Ma'am told that Robespierre made another people to make bulletin so that he can punish people whoever opposes him.
Yes, it was Robespierre's invention was there, and even the Prince King Louis and his queen, they both were sent to guillotine. And it was done in a public place. People were around it, and they sat down, and it was they were guillotined in front of public. It was not a sentence. They were not sentenced to death in some alone place. They did this in public, and they cheered and all that. So it was quite a terror. His aim was to spread terror. Of course, when you see
That's why
somebody,
the region of terror known as the reign of terror.
yeah, that's why it's called the Reign of Terror. So directory rules France after the fall of Jacobin government. The power was seized. Now, after learning from their mistake, the French government, what happened? They realized that one person should not have all the powers, so they should be divided among a directory. So a directory rules started in France after Robespierre. Now we'll talk about women. Now women in revolution, they worked. Women were mostly uh, they helped the men, but they were only they were inside the house, and they were not allowed to participate in many revolutions. Although they helped the men, and they also worked at laundresses. They worked in selling fruits and vegetables, but they were all deprived of education, and only daughters of very prosperous members, they got education. That also only at home. There were no schools and colleges for women. Okay, but women took part in revolutions, and uh, they like protested and all that, and and they were married off to whoever their father or brother wished. So after a lot of protest, they got the right to divorce. Okay, and they got the even if a women got a job, they were paid less. They did they worked more long hours, but they were paid less to a man. And it took women about 200 years of protest to get the right to vote. They only got the right to vote only in 1946. Okay, so the revolution started in the 17th, in the 18th century, but they only got the right to vote in the 20th century. So the abolition of slavery is there. I'll send you this. You all go through this. Fine. So you want me to send an WhatsApp constitutional design, right? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Sampath, you have anything to say? Any doubt?
No, ma'am.
Okay, then we will end our class now. Fine.
Yes.
Okay. Bye. Good night.
Bye, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, you want to say something, Arshit?
Bye, ma'am.
Okay. Then.